Defining a cult is no easy task. Some will argue that authoritarian regimes like Stalin's or Mao's were basically giant cults with total control, blind loyalty, and brutal consequences for stepping out of line. Others will point to major religions like Catholicism and Islam, claiming they share certain cult-like traits. However, while both arguments might hold some truth, they don't quite fit the definition. A cult is smaller, more secretive, and is often built around a leader or ideology that demands absolute loyalty. It thrives on manipulation, isolates its members, and prioritizes the group's survival at any cost. With that in mind, I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 most disturbing cults that are still active today. 25. The Santa Muerte cults. Let's jump right out of the gates with Mexico's Santa Muerte cults. Santa Muerte, or Saint Death, has a special place in Mexican culture. Her annual celebrations are usually family-friendly affairs, with followers exchanging gifts like incense and candy. However, some groups are blending her worship into violent practices tied to crime. One of the most shocking cases happened in Sonora province between 2010 and 11, when cult leader Sylvia Meraz and her followers carried out ritualistic blood sacrifices, murdering two 10-year-old boys and a 55-year-old woman. More recently, in 2024, another cult leader known as La Madrina Chayo was killed at a Santa Muerte altar during the celebrations. Although the Roman Catholic Church in Mexico has openly criticized Santa Muerte worship, it shows no signs of slowing down. 24. The Brethren. The Brethren, also called the Jim Roberts Group or Garbage Eaters, is a highly secretive religious group founded in 1971 by Jim Roberts. Its members have to give up everything, possessions, family, and modern life, to live on the road, surviving on dumpster-dived food and odd jobs. They follow strict Christian teachings and cut all their ties with the outside world, making it heartbreaking for the families who are trying to get in touch with their loved ones. 23. The Rajneesh Movement. The Rajneesh Movement was started by Indian mystic Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, later known as Osho, in the late 60s. Rajneesh was a controversial figure with bold views on topics like marriage, which he called social bondage. His ideas drew in thousands of followers, but they often came at a cost. Families were uprooted, children lost access to education, and members were isolated in communes. After clashing with authorities in India, the group moved to Oregon in the 80s. They quickly became infamous for wiretapping, immigration fraud, and even orchestrating the largest bioterror attack in U.S. history. Rajneesh was eventually deported, but small groups of his followers still exist in the US, Europe, and other parts of the world. 22. The Congregation for the Light. Known as Manhattan's secret cult, the Congregation for the Light, or simply the Light, has operated quietly out of a brownstone in New York since the 70s. It has about 200 members in New York, and others in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta who believe they descended from a master Aryan race on Atlantis. Women are discouraged from higher education and are usually married off within the group. Corporal punishment and strict adherence to meetings are common, and absences are rarely excused. While leader Tom Baer has denied the allegations of abuse, his ex-followers have described a life of fear, control, and isolation. 21. The Order of the Solar Temple. The Order of the Solar Temple mixed New Age spirituality with Freemason-style rituals and promised the world would end in the mid-90s. At its peak, it gained global infamy for a string of mysterious deaths in France, Switzerland, and Canada. But when the apocalypse didn't show up as scheduled, the group began to fall apart. While it has largely faded from prominence, the cult still has between 140 to 500 members who remain devoted to its teachings. 20. The Apostles of Infinite Love. The Apostles of Infinite Love, now called the Order of the Magnificat of the Mother of God, is a Catholic splinter group founded in the 60s by Michel Collin and Jean-Gaston Tremblay. Collin, excommunicated by the Catholic Church, declared himself Pope Clement XV and set up the group's headquarters in Quebec. Over the years, the cult has been accused of child abuse, isolating members, and using fear to control followers. Tremblay, who called himself Pope Gregory XVII, died in 2011, but his group still operates in Canada, France, and the US. 19. AUM Supreme Truth. Founded in 1987 by Shoko Asahara, AUM Supreme Truth, now known as Aleph, is a Japanese doomsday cult. Asahara combined Tibetan and Theravada Buddhist teachings with his own apocalyptic visions, attracting thousands of followers along the way. And if the name sounds familiar, it's probably because the group gained infamy for the 1995 Tokyo subway attack. Members released sarin gas in the subway system, killing 13 people and injuring thousands. Asahara and 6 senior members were later executed for their roles in the attack. Today, Aleph is still active in Japan, but its influence has waned. 18. Love Has Won. Love Has Won was led by Amy Carlson, who called herself Mother God and claimed to be a 19 billion-year-old divine being. Yeah, and people believed her. She recruited her followers online and promised them things like enlightenment and a higher purpose. Once inside the group, members were forced to follow strict rules, cut ties with their families, and devote themselves to Carlson's teachings. It didn't take long before accusations of emotional abuse, financial exploitation, and even mind control began to surface. Then, in 2021, the cult made the headlines for all the wrong reasons yet again when Carlson's mummified body was discovered in a home in Colorado. After her death, the group splintered into offshoots like Joy Reigns, but concerns about their ongoing practices continue to this day. 17. 12 Tribes. The 12 Tribes started as a small religious community in 1972 and grew into one of the most talked about groups of its kind. Founded in Chattanooga by Gene Spriggs, the group claimed to be restoring true Christianity. At its height, they had over 3,000 members living in shared communities and following strict biblical rules. But the group's reputation was clouded by disturbing allegations of abuse, kidnapping, and even murder. When Spriggs passed away in 2021 at the age of 86, the 12 Tribes lost its leader, but their communities are still active in parts of the world today. 16. Kashi Ashram. Why do people join cults? Is it a longing for belonging, a need for acceptance, or simply the desire to be part of something bigger, maybe a vision of love, peace, or a better world? That's how Ma Jayasati Bhagavati presented Kashi Ashram when she founded it in 1976, a sanctuary for spiritual growth and interfaith unity. But over the years, former members have painted a much darker picture, with allegations of abuse, forced marriages, and psychological manipulation. Despite her death in 2012, the ashram continues to operate to this day. 15. The Family International. It began in 1968 as Teens for Christ, but quickly took a darker turn. Rebranded over the years, from the Children of God to the Family of Love, and finally the Family International, the group has faced accusations of horrific abuse and violence. And their eventual recruitment tactics were, let's just say, unique. In the 70s, leader David Berg introduced something he called flirty fishing, where female members had to use seduction to attract new followers. Members lived in communes, avoided traditional jobs, and homeschooled their children while preparing for an apocalypse that never came. Although Berg died years ago, the Family International is still active and now operates under a set of rules called the Love Charter. 14. Nuwaubian Nation. At first, the Nuwaubian Nation might seem like nothing more than a weirdly eccentric group with its Egyptian-themed buildings and bizarre beliefs. Founded by Dwight York in the late 60s as a black Muslim group in New York, it eventually evolved into a cult that relocated to Georgia in the 90s. There, York built Tama Re, a massive 476-acre compound filled with pyramids and other elaborate facilities. York's leadership ended in 2002 when he was convicted of crimes involving minors and racketeering. The government demolished Tama Re in 2005, but the group still operates. 13. The Nation of Yahweh. The Nation of Yahweh preached that African Americans were the original Israelites, destined to return to Israel. The cult was led by Hulan Mitchell Jr., who rechristened himself Yahweh ben Yahweh in 1979 and declared himself the Son of God. By the 80s, the group wasn't just growing in followers, it was growing in wealth. With satellite temples, luxury cars, and a sprawling business empire, the Nation of Yahweh was thriving. But it all came crashing down in 2001 when Yahweh ben Yahweh was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and other crimes. Mitchell died in 2007, but his followers still consider him the Messiah. 12. Church of Bible Understanding. The Church of Bible Understanding, or COBU, was going to change their followers' lives around. Instead, it became notorious for isolating members, demanding their earnings, and forcing them to live in cramped, substandard conditions. Internationally, the group ran orphanages in Haiti, which were heavily criticized for neglect and poor care, especially in 2020 when a fire at one of their facilities killed 15 children. It's best known today for its chain of old good things antique stores, which still fund the organization's activities. 11. The LaRouche Movement. The LaRouche Movement began in the late 60s as a far-left group rooted in Marxist ideas and anti-establishment activism. Under the leadership of Lyndon LaRouche, however, it took a sharp turn towards far-right politics, becoming notorious for promoting conspiracy theories and extreme tactics. In the 70s, LaRouche launched Operation Mop-Up, where his followers violently targeted Communist Party gatherings. Brawls broke out, people got injured, and multiple arrests were made. Although LaRouche died in 2019, a small group of loyal followers continues to promote his ideas and remain active in American politics today. 10. Raëlian Movement. The Raëlian Movement is a UFO religion with some truly out-of-this-world beliefs. Its followers claim that all life on Earth was created by advanced extraterrestrial scientists called the Elohim, who will supposedly return by 2035. That is, if humanity builds them an embassy. The group found international attention in 2002 when its company Clonade claimed to have cloned a human baby named Eve. However, the claim was met with zero scientific proof. They've also been criticized for the use of a symbol that combines a swastika and the Star of David. Controversies aside, the Raëlian movement remains active, with members organizing events to share their beliefs. 9. The Remnant Fellowship. What do you get when you combine weight loss obsession with rigid religious teachings? Well, a recipe for control and controversy. The Remnant Fellowship Church was founded in Brentwood, Tennessee by Gwen Shamblin Lara and preached that self-control over food was a spiritual act, equating thinness with holiness. Members were taught to bow to God, not their refrigerators. But behind the scenes, Shamblin controlled members' finances, marriages, and even parenting. After her death in a 2021 plane crash, the movement faltered but didn't disappear. 8. Heaven's Gate. I know you're wondering why Heaven's Gate made it to this list, but give me a second to explain. Apart from being one of the most well-known cults due to the tragedy of 39 followers in 1997, their strange beliefs still live on. Founded in 1974 by Bonnie Nettles and Marshall Applewhite, known as T and Doe, Heaven's Gate taught that followers could reject their human nature and transform into immortal extraterrestrial beings. They called this ascension the next level and believed it was the ultimate spiritual goal. Though most of the group's members are gone, 2 people still maintain Heaven's Gate's online presence, ensuring that its doctrine lives on. 7. Happy Science. For some reason, supreme beings are a hit when it comes to the strange things people like to believe. Founded in 1986 by Ryuho Okawa, Happy Science takes this to the next level. Followers believe Okawa is the latest incarnation of El Kentare, a supreme spiritual being who has supposedly reincarnated throughout history. The group preaches a 4-fold path: love, wisdom, self-reflection, and progress as the keys to enlightenment and happiness. While it claims millions of followers across 100 countries, critics suggest the real number is far smaller. 6. Branch Davidian. Heaven's Gate isn't the only cult on this list tied to a massive loss of life. We all know the name David Koresh and remember the infamous 1993 standoff in Waco, Texas, but how many of you know what the Branch Davidians actually believed? An offshoot of the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Branch Davidians were founded in 1955 by Benjamin Roden, with a focus on apocalyptic prophecy. Koresh took the reins in the 80s and took to rallying his followers with doomsday rhetoric while secretly amassing firearms. It all came to a head during the standoff with federal agents, ending in the fire that claimed 76 lives, including Koresh's. 5. NXIVM. If your group leader calls himself Vanguard and you're not on a preschool playground or playing Marvel Rivals, that's probably your first red flag. NXIVM, led by Keith Raniere, started as a self-help organization, offering pricey workshops. But it didn't take long for its dark underbelly to surface. Women in its secretive subgroup DOS were literally branded with Raniere's initials and forced into abusive master-slave relationships. Actress Allison Mack, along with Nikki Klein and India Oxenberg, were deeply involved in recruiting and controlling members. Even the Dalai Lama briefly endorsed Rainier before the full extent of his crimes came to light. Today, he's serving a 120-year sentence. Despite Rainier's 120-year sentence, the cult's toxic culture persists in smaller splinter groups. 4. The Order of the Nine Angels. The Order of the Nine Angels, or O9A, might be one of the most disturbing groups you've never heard of. Starting in 1970s Britain, this secretive movement mixes Satanism, occult rituals, and neo-Nazi ideology in a disturbing cocktail of extremism. They've been linked to horrifying cases, like a US soldier plotting to ambush his own unit, and British teens jailed for planning terror attacks. O9A's teachings openly encourage violence, even advocating for ritual killings under the guise of culling. Efforts to ban them have done little to halt their momentum. Their materials are still circulating, and the movement continues to grow. 3. Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The FLDS broke away from mainstream Mormonism over a century ago to continue practicing polygamy. Warren Jeffs took control of the sect in 2002 and quickly established strict rules and arranged marriages, many of which involved underage girls. Even after Jeff's conviction in 2011 for crimes against minors, he continues to exert influence over the group from behind bars, and they still have thousands of followers. Most members live in secluded towns like Hildale, Utah, and Colorado City, Arizona. 2. Christian Science. The name Christian Science probably rings a bell, but their teachings might surprise you. Founded by Mary Baker Eddy, they believe that all illnesses, even the life-threatening ones, are spiritual issues that can be healed through prayer. The followers of this religion reject all medical treatment and rely solely on their faith to cure anything from a cold to cancer. This mindset has, as a shock to no one, led to devastating consequences. Even Eddy herself died of pneumonia after refusing medical care. Val Kilmer, one of its most famous followers, faced a similar situation in 2015 when he nearly died from a tumor. Thankfully, his family convinced him to seek medical treatment, which saved his life. 1. Scientology. I know you've been waiting for this one. Finally, we've arrived at Scientology, the cult that's hard to ignore and even harder to fully understand. With a reputation as infamous as its celebrity members, this group has layers of complex rules, secretive membership levels, and even its own navy, better known as Sea Org. Members sign 1,000-year service contracts and are required to pay massive sums to advance within the organization. And yes, they also believe in extraterrestrial beings. Critics and ex-members, branded as suppressive persons, often face relentless harassment. From infiltrating U.S. government offices during Operation Snow White to targeting South Park creators, their tactics are notorious. And yet, Hollywood elites like Tom Cruise and John Travolta stay devoted. So, maybe there's a side to it we're not seeing? To each his own, I guess. But no, it's terrible. Check out our Scientology video. I've done that before, years ago. And that's it for today. But before you go, here's a quick trivia question. Which cult has operated quietly out of a brownstone in New York since the 70s? And don't go back and check, no cheating. I want to see if you actually remember. Is it A, the Brethren, B, the Congregation for the Light, C, the Order of Nine Angels, or D, the Rajneesh Movement? Drop your answer in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell if you want to see more incredible lists about strange corners of human society. Speaking of which, if you thought these cults were disturbing, you might want to check out our related video on the 25 worst facts about human society. From relentless pollution to income inequality, the issues are as endless as they are grim. Thank you guys so much. I love you all, and I'll catch you next time. Seriously, watch that. Aside from that one, watch the Scientology one. That was a good one. They're all good. What am I saying?